Today's an insanely good day, guys, as the highly anticipated part 2 of Chainsaw Man has finally arrived. Following the success and appreciation of part 1, I'll definitely be honest when saying somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if part 2 with its first chapter alone would be able to replicate the hype and craziness we got with the original part 1 run, and I was definitely not disappointed. I'm sure fellow readers can agree part 2 kicked off with a bang in typical Fujimoto fashion, and he's already set up a means to explore the world of Chainsaw Man in a very interesting way. And although it's only been 30 minutes since its release at the time of my recording, I'm already itching for the next chapter. So the start of Chainsaw Man Part 2, which is the first chapter we've had in over a year and a half, being chapter 98, which signals the beginning of Chainsaw Man's respective school arc, definitely exceeded my expectations. We are placed in a classroom of students who are tasked with the goal of keeping a class pet. However, this isn't your regular class pet, as the creature in question is none other than the chicken devil named Bucky. And just as expected, but totally not expected, within the span of a page, Fujimoto has already managed to have readers saying what the f, as Bucky is going to be killed and eaten in the next 3 months by the same students who have just been assigned the task of keeping Bucky as a class pet, all for the purpose of understanding how precious life is. However, this conundrum leads to the introduction of our potential new lead in the story, Asamitaka, who is the leading character of this chapter. And it's still early days to say this, but judging from the fact Denji wasn't present in this chapter and was only mentioned through his alias being Chainsaw Man, it's highly likely she will be the core of this new story going forward, as Denji pretty much had his main story in part 1, which isn't to say he won't be a significant player in part 2. From her first appearance, we learned that Asamitaka is a girl who is insociable and rather judgmental, which is potentially due to her previous circumstances in life, as we learn her parents were eaten by devils. So her behaviour in scorning her classmates for interacting with a devil, her hatred of the city, and the so-called hero Chainsaw Man, who she says is a devil merely playing devil hunter, is understandable. As 3 months pass in the classroom, we can see Asa watching her classmates playing with Bucky and having fun together, as she merely looks displeased. When the teacher declares that the time limit for Bucky has reached its end, the headless devil shrugs, or I guess looks down in disappointment, which is kind of funny to say since it has no head, but Asa smiles saying finally. Now this character is someone newly introduced to us, so in terms of where her head was at exactly during this moment, it's impossible to know, but from what we've been shown of her character, hindsight of the chapter included, maybe it was because in this moment she was purely happy that Bucky, a devil, was going to be killed, or maybe she was happy that this small conflict between her and her classmates was won. Constantly throughout this chapter, we are shown Asa is clearly not understood by others, nor does she understand them. And what tends to be a common result of misunderstandings? Conflict, or I guess you could say war, no matter how passive or aggressive that ends up being. However, shortly after the teacher makes his declaration, the class stands up for Bucky, saying he's now their friend and they want him to live and stay in the classroom with them as a member, which was actually the outcome the teacher hoped for all along, with his lesson being that life is precious. And honestly, this just reminded me of part 1's introductory chapters with Denji's mindset of trying to be friends with devils. He wasn't judgmental on a person's race or appearance. If they wanted to be friends with him, he wouldn't turn it down for such shallow reasons. But then again, that's due to his circumstances growing up the way he did, and it's definitely not a universal opinion. So I do wonder how Denji is going to impact the lives of others going forward in Chainsaw Man whenever he appears, especially the life of Asamitaka. Moving on, the teacher dismisses class for the students and Bucky and them all go to play football, or soccer, however you want to call it. Asa is called by Bucky by her name to play, and the calling of her name, which is something only remembered by 2 people in her entire class, puts her at ease somewhat, especially when the devil of all people is treating her in a manner of respect. It opens her eyes and allows her to look at herself objectively, as she realizes she was jealous of her classmates, and as this builds up to be a very sincere and wholesome moment, this man, Fujimoto, I swear, it's always just so spontaneous and you would never expect it to happen, but Asa falls over whilst holding Bucky in her hands, which leads to Bucky's death. Organs, intestines, blood, everything just blurted out, and honestly, I didn't even know what to say. I was literally just as confused as everyone in the panel. It was crazy. And we know Bucky was a really weak devil, which is the reason he could even be considered as a class pet, but going out like that, honestly, it's embarrassing. I don't wish that on anyone. Damn, he didn't deserve that, man. I ain't gonna lie, he did not deserve that. But the emotion of the students, the facial expressions and disgust at the situation, combined with the self-hatred Asa had towards herself, which made her throw up before even falling unconscious, was executed really well, and is definitely one of the elements within Fujimoto's works that I enjoy every single time. Following the days after Bucky's death, we can see that Asa has been affected deeply. That divide between her and other people that has been made acutely obvious through this first chapter has returned once again, with her being the one killing Bucky even though it was an accident. She feels like dying almost, and doesn't even want to attend class anymore for obvious reasons, and is in a clear state of depression. But what follows these events is truly mind-blowing. The class president and the teacher of her class visit her room, saying that they should go and visit Bucky's grave. As the two cross the road, Asa stays on the other side, saying that the signal's red, which is why she didn't move. I also think this was a good visual representation of Asa mainly being at odds with others, and that might not have been the purpose of the shot, but that's certainly how I perceived it. Upon seeing Asa on the other side of the street, the president begins to mock her goody two-shoes nature, and then she begins to confess. And honestly, the latter half of these confessions, I don't even know what to say. So she starts off by saying that the teacher apologized for Bucky's death to the class on her behalf. Now that's cool in my opinion, great teacher, very understanding. Now on to the next one. She says that the teacher, also known as Mr. Tanaka, said that she should befriend her. So I'm reading this like, it's okay, I guess that's really understandable. As a teacher, you wouldn't want anyone left out. Typical stuff that even happened in my school days, so it just makes sense. But this last confession absolutely blew up the scale, like I did not expect this at all. So she says, did you know that Mr. Tanaka likes you even though he's having sex with me? Now let me even break character for a second. I was literally so confused reading this that it took me a couple seconds to realize that the class president was transforming into a devil as she was speaking. This is just one of those like what the fuck moments Fujimoto has, and I swear I'm never expecting them. I was here thinking Mr. Tanaka was a good guy, I can't be the only one, but it turns out the whole time he's having sex with his student. And you hate to see it, but let's get back on track. So after this massive revelation, we learned that the class president, in an attempt to reach her so-called happy ending with Mr. Tanaka, voluntarily ended up making a contract with the Justice Devil. And while the class president is in the process of killing Asa, she reveals that she tripped her up by order of the Justice Devil, so she would fall and crush Bucky, which is all types of messed up. So in the short moments before her death, Asa feels relieved that she understands she wasn't responsible for Bucky's death, and that the president was jealous of her. Basically, she gained answers to questions which were holding her back the most in life. And as she's about to die, she wonders if she maybe could have lived better if she lived a bit more selfishly. Now this is where things take a turn for the worse or better, I don't even know to be honest. Upon her death, we see a devil perched upon the traffic light. This devil, which resembles I guess a bird, owl, I don't really know what this creature is, but it says if you want to live, your body will be mine. And this whole scene just reminded me of the first chapter of Chainsaw Man when obviously Denji fused with Pochita after the zombie devil's attack. But after the creature says if you want to live, your body will be mine, Asa then rises and we learn that the devil that's just taken over her body is none other than the War Devil. Now I'm not gonna lie, I was taken aback reading this because of all devils to kick off part 2 with, we get the War Devil. And the reason this is actually so insane is because if you remember in part 1 we learned of the existence of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which were devils that clashed against Chainsaw Man, who is arguably the strongest devil alive currently. During Makima's insurgence at the end of part 1, she mentioned the other horsemen being death, war and hunger, with Makima being the control or conquest devil I guess you can say, and with her being the main villain of part 1, it really makes me think if we were going to have multiple parts of Chainsaw Man, each focusing on the different horsemen, since we had Makima being the control or conquest devil in the first part, and now we've been introduced to the War Devil. And the first display of power we see from the War Devil is nothing short of insanity. Asa rips out Tanaka's spinal cord and uses it as a sword, easily destroying the massive flesh coming towards her. And then she literally takes the falling flesh and turns it into a hand grenade before quickly decapitating the class president and blowing up both hers and Tanaka's remains. So just on the War Devil's first appearance, we can already see how broken she is, being able to make weapons out of any and everything. And with the ending of the chapter, she says, just you wait Chainsaw Man, I'll make you vomit nuclear weapons back up. As we see a poster of Chainsaw Man, the so-called hero of the city, which says Chainsaw Man calling party 512, which should be the 12th of May I believe, but regardless the War Devil plans on meeting Denji very soon, which is a crazy direction to lead the story in given context, but it seems Denji might have another serious devil in his hands and I'm definitely excited to see that happen. But with that being said, that's it for the explosive first chapter of Chainsaw Man Part 2. Honestly, my mind is already all over the place in terms of how the story is going to progress. Is Asa a hybrid or fiend? I don't think it's very clear yet. Her eyes are exactly like Makima's with the spiral, which only happened after possession. Is this a theme with the Horsemen's devils, or did Makima maybe have some sort of influence over the War Devil? How does the War Devil plan on making Denji vomit back up nuclear weapons, since in part 1 we learned that anything Chainsaw Man consumes is erased from history? So how the hell does the War Devil even remember nuclear weapons when Makima said that even with her ability to control, she can barely even remember the things that were consumed? Which might lead back to what I was saying with Makima maybe having influence or control over the War Devil. I don't know, man, but there's so many questions and I'm just speculating like a madman at this point. But this was an amazing first chapter and I'm very happy we're back with Chainsaw Man. And I hope you guys are as happy as I was. So be sure to let me know your thoughts on the first chapter down below and also subscribe for more Chainsaw Man content. I'll be covering the chapters weekly. I don't know how yet. I have to wait and see whether I'm going to do a similar approach to this video, stream it, anything else. I don't know. I need to figure out. But do expect something on Chainsaw Man weekly. And last but not least, be sure to join my Twitter community, which I'll link down below in the description, where we can all discuss Chainsaw Man after the latest chapters as a community. It's very small and honestly I only want very chill people in it so things don't get too hectic and out of hand, so we can actually have really good discussions. If that's something you're interested in, be sure to check it out down below and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.